Coffee with Caregivers production costs are covered by a partnership with United Healthcare and the National Foster Parent Association. We receive no federal or state funding and depend on our constituents and viewers to help us achieve our goals to provide support and services that meet identified needs within our mission. We would like to welcome the viewers of Coffee with Caregivers to the family. The National Foster Parent Association offers several membership opportunities for individuals, child placing agencies, and state and local affiliates. You can join today or donate at NFPAonline.org.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Caregivers. It's good to be with you again. And I'm so excited to have our guest back for another program with us. She was made such an impression the first time, we knew we had to get her back. And I knew that around Father's Day was the time to do it because she has a story to tell you about a foster father and kind of, well, even though she didn't know him a long time, what a difference he made in her life. So Rhonda Sciortino, it's so good to have you again, and I'm really looking forward to our visit today. I wanted to introduce my cup today, and this one happens to come from United Health Group. And what it says on the back when you're is keep it steady, keep it strong, and be united. And I know that this is something probably they give to their employees or, volunteers and things like that. But I think the message about keep it steady, keep it strong, and be united is really key to anything that any of us do when we're trying to accomplish some goals that we can't do by ourselves for sure. Right, Rhonda?
I couldn't agree more.
And a good plug for United Healthcare. They are the sponsor of financially supporting the Coffee with Caregivers program for the National Foster Parent Association. But they also do a lot of other things with us. We co-presented 3 Zoom trainings in May for National Foster Care Month that were well received. They have some key staff that work with us on lots of projects throughout the year and support us. One of their staff serves on our conference sponsorship committee, just very involved with supporting foster families and the children that they serve all the time, not just through the Coffee with Caregivers program. So I wanted to, give them an extra shout out today for just, hanging in there with us all the time, helping us think of new things to do, and providing us with the moral support sometimes is as important as the monetary support, so that when we're getting tired or burned out or whatever, we've got some new people to talk to and get us re-energized and reinvigorated. So a really important thing to us. Rhonda, you want to tell us about your cup?
Well, sure, I do. I want to say too, to your point, Irene, about United Healthcare sponsorship. And I just am such a big believer in individuals and businesses, big corporations, little bitty businesses coming alongside caregivers, members of the National Foster Parent Association. I feel so strongly about it that we put together a national initiative, as you well know, Love is Action Community Initiative. And the whole idea of it is to just let people know, well, here's how you can help. Because everybody isn't called to be maybe a foster parent, but everybody can do something. So I love that United Healthcare is doing that. And anybody who wants to come alongside NFPA in some way, go to loveisaction.com, go to NFPAonline.com. There are ways for you to do it. So my cup says God is good, because every once in a while, I just need a reminder when something happens that I didn't like, something that I consider to be bad in the world.
Yeah.
And, I know that this is a light and uplifting show. The reality is, though, that National Foster Parent Association is there to respond to child abuse and neglect. And so the serious issues that happen that we don't like and we can't figure out. I mean, I just look at my cup and I go, okay, well, this is happening and I don't like it, but God is still good. And I believe that, he brings good out of difficult situations. And that's really my story that you've heard me tell before. But I was with just a wonderful couple of foster parents. I wish that I knew their names. I feel so badly. I was just a little girl and I wasn't there for very long. And so I refer to them as those people because the social worker lady came and said, you're going to go stay with these people for a while. I didn't know it was foster care. I didn't until I was 27 years old. I never admitted to anybody that I had been in out-of-home placement. And it wasn't until I started to insure child welfare organizations that I even knew all the terminology. But I knew that those people were, really sweet. And it was the first time in my life that I ever felt safe. And I slept through the night. That was really a big deal for me, that I slept in a bed and the sheets were clean. And Irene, the sheets matched the bedspread. I thought,
you're in high heaven there, aren't you?
Oh, I thought they were so rich. Their sheets matched their bedspread. And, everything was clean and nice. And I'd never, ever seen that in my life. And they had so much food. I was a hungry little girl, and I'm pretty sure that I must have eaten them out of house and home. And I would I remember taking food into the bedroom and having anything I could get into my the pockets of my jeans. I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of food because I came to them very hungry. But they fed me. They fed me well, and I had never ever had that feeling of having eaten till I was full. And so they made me feel safe just all the way around. And what I didn't know at the time, but I learned later, was that one thing that foster father said to me changed my life. And it's the only thing that I remember him saying. I think most of the kind of work, of being a foster parent fell on the wife. Mm-hmm. And she was great, but I kind of think it was her idea, to be a foster parent.
Probably a lot of them that way.
I imagine. And so he didn't say much. He was a nice man, but he didn't say a whole lot. And I remember I was sitting on their white linoleum kitchen floor. I remember the white linoleum floor because it was clean and you could sit on the floor. And I was sitting on the floor because I was throwing a temper tantrum, Irene. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say it, but what happens, and I know you know this, when kids finally feel safe, they can feel emotion.
Absolutely.
And where I had been before, I was burned with cigarettes. I was burned with hot oil. You didn't dare to really express any feelings because it would not be received well. It would be met with punishment. So I think one of the things I want to say to foster parents who may be listening is that if a kid is throwing a full-blown tantrum, or they're, screaming, yelling, whatever it is, I know you don't want that in your house. I know that that's not something you want to happen every single day. But you know, when a kid comes to your home and a couple weeks in, they are doing this, I would say, and I'm not a mental health professional, but from my experience, I would say that's a compliment. They feel safe with you.
That's right.
They feel like they can really just finally let it out. So, you know, you might just take a seat and let it play itself out. I mean, I don't know. Do what the professionals tell you to do. Don't go by me. But in my case, I remember the lady was standing there and she's just wringing her hands and, oh, she didn't know what to do because she wanted to calm me down. Bless her heart. You know, she wanted to take care of me. And the one thing I do remember about them is that they had one child and she was killed in a car accident. Oh. And the lady, at least, she was not done being a mom. Right. And she was just pouring her love into me. So she wanted me to be, you know, happy. And, you know, so here I am on the floor throwing a full-blown temper tantrum, and she didn't know what to do. And the man came up, and I remember he stood in the doorway and he said, "Young lady," and it was a real, you know, like real deep voice, "Young lady, you were put here for a reason and you better be about finding out what it is." I mean, and he told me to quit feeling sorry for myself. And I mean, Irene, I was like 7 or 8 years old, and he's talking about, I understand now because his words came back to me when I was about 27 years old. He was really talking to me about my life purpose.
That's right.
I believed that I was an accident of biology. I was never supposed to be born. Nobody wanted me. That had been told to me over and over again. And the people who were raising me, my maternal grandparents, they very clearly said, you know, we were done raising our kids. We were not trying to take on another kid. Here we are saddled with you. And they weren't well. They weren't well mentally and emotionally and any other way. And the notion of that there was a reason for my life, a purpose for my life, was completely foreign. And so I screamed back at that sweet man, "I hate you." And
I've done that a bunch of times in my career with the fostering.
Oh man. I mean, I guess to be a good foster parent, you probably have to develop a little bit of a thicker skin. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I'm embarrassed to say, if I was 7 or 8 years old and it came, you know, it came back to me and it started to make sense at 27, there's a 20-year gap in there. And I never saw those people again. I was never able to go back and say to them, you know, you changed my life. And they changed the trajectory of my life. They didn't just change me. It did change me. But it changed the way I thought. And it changed what I decided to do with my life. And even now in my life, Irene, the project, you know, I've written 13 books but the project that I'm working on now, my first notes, I throw notes in a file and think, well, one day I'll get to it and I'll write a book about this or whatever. I think my first notes on this one are from 1997. Wow. And I still haven't published it. But it's called Your Real Success. And because it's written in sort of in more of a secular format. But really the bottom line of it is exactly what that foster father told me in 1968 or something like that. Wow. That there's a purpose. I'm saying to everybody what that man said to me. That's how much that one conversation changed my life. The purpose of my life, the project of my life that I hope that I publish it before I die because I cannot seem to get it to where I feel like it's really done. But it's really about saying, there is a reason you are here. There's a purpose for your life. It's a good purpose. You have every single thing that you need to do what you were born to do. There's not a single person alive right now who needs to live in kind of a sadness or a vague discontent, or full-blown discontent for that matter, because there's this purpose and it's good. And when we find it and we're really living it, we feel more alive than we ever do doing anything else. We feel more content. Everything that we need comes along with it. And so when I say real success, I'm talking about good relationships, good health, because you're not stressed out all the time, right. Peace and joy, and then enough financial provision to do what you were born to do. And if we all would look for it, like that man told me to do all those years ago. And I've been doing it since I was 27. I've been trying to find it since I was 27. And I think I've got it. And I'm happier, more joyful, more peaceful than I ever thought I would ever be. So I know it's real. I know it's possible. I mean, I don't know if I told you how really good my life is, filled with some of the best people. I mean, think of it, our relationship, even though I don't live close to you and all that, right. But I feel like, our paths were crossed for a reason. And absolutely. And you have enriched my life so much. And I had just have this amazing life. And I want that for everybody. And just because I want to specifically say this to the people who have gone through some very tough stuff, maybe some, really awful childhoods when we were too little and too vulnerable to prevent those things from happening. That doesn't mean that we're too broken to be fixed. No, as a matter of fact, the opposite is true. All of those really painful things that happened prepare us and equip us to do what we're supposed to do, because you can't learn that stuff in a classroom. Right. And as wonderful as all the, good social work schools are and, and all that stuff, I don't want to take anything away from anybody. And there are a lot of wonderful people who did have a good mother and father like yourself, who, just your heart is there to help. It's all good. There's a place for everybody. But for those of us who, have been told that we have these mental health diagnoses and, it's just all those words sound so terrible. Mm-hmm. And that, it just sounds like you're so broken and everything. And so much talk now about being a victim and victim points and intersectionality and all that kind of stuff. And, I get it. It's good to acknowledge, but what it means to me, what my foster father said to me is, don't stay there. Right. Don't stay a victim. Yes, it happened to you. I'm sorry it happened to you. But guess what? It's not happening now. Right. And if children are with a good foster parent, a good foster family that cares, I can't think of a more powerful message than to say, you matter, you're important, you're not an accident, you're an intentional, and you are fully able to do what you were born to do. So
I 100% agree with you. You know that, and that's why I wanted you to be on the show around Father's Day, because what you said in the beginning about a lot of times it's the mamas that want to be the foster parent and dad just goes along with it because we want to keep mama happy, right? We always know we got to keep mama happy. Well, and so sometimes foster fathers aren't as active, in many ways as the mother, and yet they're there, they're influencing, they're demonstrating by how they live, by how they talk to their wife, how they talk to other children, how they interact with their neighbor. All of those things are still teaching moments, because children learn by observation, usually even more than they learn by words, right?
Right.
And so we can never discount what anybody in that foster family does, as how they may influence children who join their family through foster care, whether it be for a week or 3 years that they live with together, right? And I always thought about, all the seeds that families plant in these kids. The sad thing is most of them never get to see that child as an adult, right? And how some of those seeds probably came to fruition. For those of us that had went into fostering, it was 1974 when we started fostering. We've got kids that are now in their 40s who are in our home, and we have had some of them come back, find us, contact us with Facebook. It's really made it a lot different, to tell us about who they are now, and to say, we never forgot you. We never forgot your family. I was afraid I'd never find you again, that sort of thing. Here's what I'm doing now. Here's what's happened in my life. I'd love for you to hear some pictures of my children. I consider them your grandkids, even though you don't even know they exist. Things like that. I mean, to be able to have that experience is, well, there's, all the heartache and pain that also goes with fostering goes away. I mean, I think that's God's plan in saying, okay, no matter how difficult some of these kids can be, or their situations can be, or their situations with their families can be, or whatever it is, or the situation with the agencies and everybody stepping on everybody's toes or not talking to one another and nobody knowing what everybody's doing. I mean, all of that stuff that just jumbles around a foster family just gets in the way of what we think we're doing. But when you narrow it down to who really makes the biggest difference in the foster care system, I truly believe it's that family who's providing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, kindness, love, nurturing, care, in direction, instruction, to these kids. And the foster families don't get that type of recognition. And it really makes me sad. We talk about how broken the system is all the time. And then people think, oh, well, it's got to be the foster parents are not doing good with the kids, right? And that's not it. It's oftentimes they're not getting the supports and services they need to meet the specific needs of kids that are coming into family foster care. So it's hard, but, I just wanted foster fathers to be able to hear you say that this man, wasn't overly active and, anything in the family, but when he needed to be there, he stood up and he said what he knew you needed to hear.
Yes.
And it stayed with you for 20 years before the light bulb went off, kind of thing. And I talk about my son, Bobby, who you met on Love His Action, and where he was gone, for 11 years, came back at 32 and said, Mom, I get it. I know who I'm supposed to be now. It took him till he was 32. I mean, we all have our timelines, right?
Yep.
And he's a fantastic man and a beautiful husband and father. So I couldn't be prouder of him. I probably don't want to know what he did over those 11 years because I might not be real proud of some of that stuff, and that's okay. It's his business, and it was prior to him coming home and wanting to be a part of the family again and to be a productive citizen and, take care of his family, his growing family. So we never know, what impact we have as individuals on anybody around us, whether it's through foster care or at our church or the PTA meeting or, the scouts or wherever it is that you're interacting with children and other adults that can make those differences. I just wish that society would have more respect and show more kindness to foster families and families, and that certainly, and adoptive families as well when they adopt through the foster care system. It's they are doing God's work. I truly believe that, and I think that putting people like you and other former fosters, I know you don't like being called that probably, but out here for us to listen to and to really hear, right? To understand better where we need to go with foster care and what it needs to look like. And that there's no better experts in that than the youth who have experienced every piece of this system. And I think we're doing a far better job of that in this country now than we ever have in the past as well. And I'm really, really excited about that because I think we're finally listening to the right people.
Well, thanks to NFPA. And I say all the time, I mean, anybody who's trying to be a foster parent, an adoptive parent, a step parent, a grandparent, every kind of parent, I can't imagine, doing it without being part of NFPA. And it's so inexpensive to join. It's literally the cost of a few cups of coffee to join, to be able to connect with people who have done it for years. And I've always said, when I had my daughter, Irene, I had never held a baby. I'd never babysat. I didn't know, I joke and say I didn't know which end to feed and which end to diaper. I figured that out pretty quick, but but I didn't know what to do. And so, when she wouldn't go to sleep and I mean, I was literally asking, can you die from not getting enough sleep? Because I thought if it could happen, it was going to happen to me at any moment, that I would drop dead because this baby didn't want to sleep. And who did I go to? I found foster parents. And Corky and Gail Kinsvater, I hope they're listening to this now, now retired and living in New Mexico, but I went to them, about everything. Now she's 3 and she won't go to sleep because she's scared she's going to miss something. What do I do now? Oh, now she's 10 and she doesn't like math. What do I do now? So I think to myself, I don't understand why everybody who's trying to raise kids doesn't just join NFPA, because the trainings that you guys have, just the networking, the conferences, the being able to call somebody who's done it for years, they've seen it all, nothing like, I think of you, I don't think I could freak you out with a child behavior. I think you've probably heard it all, seen it all, and so you don't have all the answers, but you might have, we'll try this, or, 2 or 3 ideas because you've been there and you're calm. And, for somebody who's never been through it, and maybe they happen to live in an area like where I'm from in Southern California, where the caseloads for the social workers are so high that you call a social worker and you don't get a call back for 2 or 3 days, and you don't know what to do. Well, if you're in NFPA, there's somebody you can call and at least have a conversation about, what do I do now? And I just, I feel so strongly about what you and this organization does. And one of the things, to your point about, just kind of the society and culture and not recognizing foster parents, for many, many years, I insured child welfare organizations. So I analyzed the way kids and caregivers get injured in out-of-home placement. And so many times in just reviewing the things that happened, it would just break my heart that the community didn't surround the foster family. I mean, it seems to me that life would be so much easier if neighbors were supportive, if everybody on your street was supportive, if instead of having that "I don't want this in my backyard" attitude, coming alongside and saying, if we all work together, the whole community will be better. Mm-hmm. I mean, hello, right? I mean, a 14-year-old in 5 years is going to be an adult.
Right.
So if we want good adults, step back a little bit and help with the kids in foster care. And, if you're going to the ball game, can you take a kid with you? If you're going to church, if you're going to wherever, if you're out in the front playing catch, can you invite these kids along? I mean, it doesn't usually take a lot of money. I'm not talking about spending a lot of, time and effort, but whatever you're doing, there's a kid who's never done it before.
Right.
And if you can give a foster parent a break, and I know I'm talking about, I didn't mention about getting fingerprinted and getting cleared and, and all that stuff. I totally get it. But gosh, recognizing the incredible personal sacrifices that are made by foster families and just helping. And I've often thought, I've actually pitched this in several communities. Wouldn't it be something if once a year, the local newspaper would put out and say, hey, nominate your favorite foster mom, nominate your favorite foster dad, nominate your favorite social worker, your favorite teacher. And what if the community had an annual celebration? I mean, it could be a picnic in the park. It could be a potluck. It doesn't have to be some big fancy black tie affair. But for the mayor to recognize, hey, you were nominated and voted as the best foster mom of the year or whatever, and to just elevate those positions in our community, the selfless, quiet, uncelebrated heroes that are literally changing lives and changing the trajectories of the children within their influence. And I know for a fact about this changing of trajectory business, because I can tell you that the kids that I grew up with, Irene, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this before, but the boy next door that was my best friend growing up, when he was 13, he joined a gang. He came home from school one day and he had this bandana thing on his head. And I remember I looked at him like, what in the world? And I went and sat down next to him on his step, just like we had been doing our whole lives. We were born the same year, 1 month apart. And I said, Felipe, what's this thing on your head? What are you doing? And he sounded funny all of a sudden, Irene. Well, he started talking. He had joined a gang, and the initiation for the gang was you had to shoot somebody. And so if they died, you would shave your head and walk around with a shaved head, and that was supposed to be some, I don't know, sign that you were some big bad person or whatever. But if they didn't die, then you could shave your head, but you had to put the thing on your head. So here's this kid. I mean, we were two peas in a pod our whole growing up. I didn't go that way. The kid across the street was shot execution style for using some of the drugs he was supposed to be selling. There was a kid down the street who, last I heard, was still on death row in California for murder. My best little girlfriend on the street, the last I heard, she was still waking up in the morning and getting stoned first thing. Hadn't worked, a job, I think in her whole entire life. She had a baby at 15. That child grew up and had a baby at 14 or something like that. And 3 generations on some kind of welfare. In the meantime, I bought my first house when I was 19. I started my first company when I was 27. And I'm not saying that to brag. God has been good in my life. And it was those foster parents who took me to church, actually, and introduced me to Jesus. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that foster father and mother. They were the first people I ever saw who actually seemed like they liked each other. They got along. I just watched. They didn't yell at each other. They didn't throw things. There was no screaming. It was just safe. It was nice. They were kind. We need to be celebrating the people in our communities who just quietly do life in front of everybody and teach us all.
Yeah. Right? We had an experience like that. We had a 13-year-old join us for a week. It was the week of Christmas, between Christmas and New Year. So she came on December 24th and went home on January 2nd, back to a institutional type group care type facility. She hadn't been in a family in many years. And she was very quiet. She was very observant. She followed me around. My husband kept saying, gosh, she's like a puppy following you at your, just because I said, well, she doesn't know anybody. So I guess you stick with the mama and see what happens, Yeah. She was so interested in the kitchen because, where she lived, there was a cafeteria. She never got an opportunity to cook, decide what she might want, plan any of it or anything like that. So it was a very good week. She was, like I say, very quiet, excited when she got Christmas gifts like everybody else. We made sure she would. They didn't send any with her, of course. And then she went back. And I tried numerous times after that to call and ask how she was doing. And I was told, you don't have any right to know. You're not a part of her case plan. I said, well, we were good enough to take her for a week when nobody else would. But that doesn't seem very fair to her or to us. Well, I'm sorry. That's the rules. You're not part of the plan. You don't have any business knowing what she's doing or how she is. I wrote a couple of letters. Didn't get any response. So I stopped that. Move forward 10 years and our phone rings and I answered it. And I swear, Rhonda, I knew her voice after 10 years. I knew who that was on the phone. And this woman says, hi, are you the foster family? And I said, well, yes, we are. And she said, are you the Clements? And I said, yes, we are. And she said, I can't believe I finally found you. She said, I know you don't know who this is. And I just said, well, I think I do. And I said her name. And she started crying. And she said, how could you remember my name? And I said, because I think about you every once in a while. I've wondered always how you are. Where did you go with your life? Are you safe? And she said, well, that's why I'm calling you. I'm married. I have 2 children. They're young. And my husband has gotten a job out of state and we're going to move. And I've told my husband the only reason why I know how to be a wife and kind of how to be a mother is because I spent a week with your family. And he wants to know if we can come see you. He'd like to meet you before we leave.
Oh my God.
And I said, this was a Saturday. And I said, absolutely. When do you want to come? She said, is tomorrow too soon? And I said, no, tomorrow afternoon is perfect. I said, I'll give you directions. So I gave her directions over the phone, and they came to our home, and we were introduced to her husband and her little kids. And he just stood there when he walked in our front door, and he said, I know this sounds strange, but I just had to come see the people who my wife says taught her in a week what she needed to know to try to be a good wife and mother.
Oh, Irene.
And that's why I always say to foster parents, you never know. You never know the impact that you have on these kids.
That's
Again,
right.
like whether you've had them a week, like we did her, or you've had them for several years, which we also had some like that. But every action and interaction and response is so important. And one of the things you were saying a while ago about, you throwing your temper tantrum, and we didn't have a lot of training and a lot of direction when we became foster parents in the 70s. And so thank God we lived out in the country on a little farm. We didn't have close neighbors. And we had a couple of real tantrum throwers, screamers, yellers, and all that kind of stuff. And so finally I said, there's a better way to get that yelling and screaming out where everybody else doesn't have to hear you, but you can still get all that frustration out of your body, all that anger out of your body. What? I said, follow me. I'm going to take you outside and we're going to practice. And so we go out in the field and scream and yell until we were so tired we couldn't do it. And we did it together. And it worked. They'd go outside, say, I got to go out for a minute. I said, okay. And I'd watch them, they never were out of my sight, but screaming and screaming and screaming. And the more times they did it, the shorter the episodes got.
Okay.
And they didn't need to scream and yell and throw a temper tantrum anymore after a while. I mean, you just have to figure out what works, right? And that worked for us because we didn't live anywhere where anybody was going to hear us, right? And be calling cops on us or something, thinking we were doing something bad. And so I feel sorry for people who live in town because they couldn't go out and do that. But, there's just those things that sometimes you have to figure out how to help kids release all those feelings that have been building up for so long, and their fears about what the future might look like or could look like or would look like. And they know if they went home what it would look like. And even though it was bad, at least they knew what that was. But looking at a future where they were going to be doing something different was frightening. It's frightening for all of us when we try something new.
That's right.
Regardless, we quit a job because we just can't do it another day. And we're like, okay, now what am I going to do? Well, we have to trust that we're going to find something that is better. I know in my life it's happened several times, and always I was like, oh, it's got to be the end. Well, we're going to lose our house. We're going to whatever. And then an offer would come up that was like, can I do that? Well, yeah, I can do that. I'll figure out what I got to do that, right? And do it, and then become very successful at that. So, and it was way more fulfilling than what I was doing before and was grieving so much about losing. So, I think we all can have those personal experiences that we can relate back to the children as much younger people than we are now. We're still trying to understand it all. And why it's so hard for kids to understand the situations that they're in. And we have to deal with whatever behaviors that, come from all that trauma and help them figure it out. So anyway, I was just looking at our time is up, Rhonda, and it always goes way too fast when we're talking to each other. But anything you like to end with before we say goodbye?
I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you. You're such an inspiration to everybody within your influence. And I want to thank every single person who is willing to take in and raise children they didn't make. I just don't think there's anything more significant. And getting choked up thinking about it.
Yeah. A lot of good people out there doing incredible work.
That's right.
I just wish they had the respect of the public that they deserve. And if they're a stinker family out there, then those agencies need to have the guts to say adios to them and goodbye, and recruit some new families that can do what needs to be done.
That's right. Well, maybe if we started celebrating the good people, more
That's
good
right.
people would get into it.
Exactly.
So that's what we hope to do with Love is Action. Oh, that's what I should say.
Yes.
We're having a foster parent town hall.
Yes.
Not this Friday, but next. I'm not sure which Friday, but look at loveisaction.com. It's always the second Friday of the month. That's what it is. But the foster parent town hall, and we want to hear from foster parents. Sorry, I'm still crying, Irene. And we want to hear what you need, because then we want to take that to communities throughout the United States to try to get people to circle the wagons around you. And so just know there are people like me. There are a lot of people like me who appreciate what you do. We get it. We've got your back, and we're trying to just, bring people alongside of you.
And I appreciate that very, very much. And as does the NFPA. I'm going to retire this year, and there'll be some new executive director hired in, and with some new board members coming on this year. So I'm just having a lot of excitement about the future of the organization, bringing in some new talent, some new ideas, fresh eyes. And I think that's what it needs. I'm getting tired. I'm older, and it's time for me to go. I won't go away, but I won't be in this position anymore. And but I'll always be an advocate for foster families and for the kids in care. And I hope to be able to continue some of that work with you after my retirement. So it's all good and it's all exciting. And I think it's a beautiful time for foster care, really, in this country. As much as I know it needs help, but help is coming. That's the thing. I mean, we do have legislation on a national level and state level that is going to force things to change the way they hopefully should. And for me, that's just like kind of looking at the rainbow and wanting to make it happen quicker. But change always takes time, and lasting change takes a long time. So just to be a part of starting to make that process happen is really exciting.
Well, you've done an amazing job, and I just appreciate you so much. I'm so glad you had me here today. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can just go to Rhonda, RHONDA.org. And I respond to every single message personally. So I would love to hear from anybody who wants to reach out.
That's awesome. Perfect way to close our show. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with our friends at United Healthcare. For more information about United Healthcare, please visit www.uhc.com.